Hi, assalamu alaikum. Good evening and welcome to all of you for our event tonight. My name is Rumaana from the Cube Network, and I'm so utterly delighted that you can join us tonight for this very special event, which is a presentation of some key soft transferable skills and advice, which will all help us in our career journeys, irrespective of where we are. The evening will be hosted by three fabulous speakers, the first of which is Bano Sheikh, who's a partner at KPMG. The second of which is Rukasana, who is Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Lead at Google. How exciting. And finally by Robbina Qureshi, a Senior Manager at KPMG. I'll talk very shortly in detail about how impressive their careers are. But before I do so, I'd like to stop and talk you through some necessary housekeeping. It's slightly dull, I'm afraid, but I'll make it as quick as I can. First, the event is being live streamed on Facebook and it's being recorded. So for those of us who can't join tonight, they'll have access to it afterwards. Second, we'll be muting all the guests until the Q&A. So if during the session you are accidentally unmuted, I'd be super grateful if you could unmute yourself or mute yourself, sorry. We would love to take your questions at the very end. So do post them on the Zoom chat and my co-host Tasnima and Miah will collate them and hopefully we'll have an opportunity to get through as many of them as possible with the panel at the end. And if you're having any technical issues, please do post the questions to my co-hosts and they'll try and help. I think I ought to introduce myself very briefly at this point. As I said, my name's Rumaana and I'm a lawyer by trade. I started off very many years ago, over 10 years ago, as a trainee at the Magic Circle firm Slaughter & May. Where I was a junior associate there for a couple of years. I set up the Muslim network there, and then I left to go to Allen and Overy for a number of years overseas. I then came back to London to join the Foreign and Commonwealth Office as their in-house counsel, and now I'm at Clifford in London, working as a lawyer in their risk and compliance function, and I'm also part of the CC Muslim network. I was also involved with Cube very many years ago when it was a baby, back before it had its name rebranding. And tonight I've got the very special privilege and I'm so delighted to be hosting our second event called Empowering Me, Empowering You. Note the exclamation marks, life is always better with an exclamation mark, on behalf of Cube, the Wolf Sisters Network and Consortium. And so very briefly, just in case you're not aware of who those organizations are, what is Cube? Cube is very grandly known as the network of networks. It's a joint voice of Muslim employee organizations and sort of D&I, which is diversity and inclusion faith groups across various industries, not just in the city, but also other industries. Wolf Sisters Network is precisely what it says on the tin. It's a network of Muslim sisters in the city, and its primary tool of sort of connecting with people is through WhatsApp and social media. Lastly, Consortium is a professional Muslim umbrella network of over 15 Muslim organizations, which includes both Wolf Sisters and Cube, and also various other industry Muslim employee groups, including doctors, lawyers, yay, engineers, and teachers. I also ought to say that please connect and subscribe to the different networks, social media pages and newsletters to keep aware of the latest events. And very excitingly, we do have another event being launched on the 9th of March, details to follow. And very finally, but very importantly, I'd like to remind everyone that all of our speakers tonight, including myself, speak in a very personal capacity, and we do not represent the views of our employing firms. So moving on to the first star of the show tonight, our very exciting speaker, who will be sharing her insights on the important art of networking and developing team and client relationships, is Bano Sheikh. Bano joined KPMG in 2019 as a partner, and she is the very first Pakistani female partner in the UK. So I'm going to clap on behalf of that because it's such a wonderful accolade, and I'm sure you're all doing the same. She is also one of the sponsoring partners of KPMG's Muslim network and has over 18 years of international professional services experience in an impressively wide range of fields. She's worked in Europe, the US, the Middle East, and Pakistan. She also worked previously for Ernst & Young, and she's led mainly large-scale global audit clients in a variety of fields, which includes hedge funds, private equity funds, and banks. So I'm going to hand over to Bano, and we are so privileged to have you here tonight, Bano, and we are very much looking forward to gaining your tips and words of wisdom for your very illustrious career.
Thank you, Rumaana, and thank you for a wonderful introduction. Hi, everybody. Assalamu alaikum. I am so pleased to be part of this event. And I think this is a great opportunity, not just for any of us just in the network to enjoy and understand what everything is, how things are being brought together. But, just the topic of empowering you and empowering me is really close to my heart, because without empowering each other, you will not be able to build up the network and also, the impact that you really want to do from a diversity perspective. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to be part of the network and this event. So since Rumaana has kindly done my introduction, I won't repeat that. What I will straight away jump into is the topic they have asked me to talk about, which is around networking, client relationship, and building team relationships. So from a very practical point of view, there are a few things which were taught to me by one of the coaches I had in Scotland when I started my career in the UK in 2007. And one of the kind of small things that he did ask me to think about when I go for a networking event and think about how do I network was around the fact that if you enter a room, already you feel you're different because you're an Asian, you're a Muslim, you're a woman, and you feel as if what and how do I make an impact? So he very nicely said to me, there are a few small tips that you can think about from a very onset of the event. One of that is, once you enter a network event, you need to be sure that you need to be in a calm state. So find a corner just to calm yourself down, scan the room, and once you have established your inner energy of calmness, then you see where do you want to and with whom do you want to start your networking. So the first point in time is to make sure that you remain calm, scan the room, and then first get yourself in order when you started the networking event. So in the networking event, the one thing that I would suggest to people is, that is my personal experience. If you're new to an event, you don't know the people there, you don't have other friends who have, will be part of the networking, you do one thing, you scan the room and you find a group of people which are odd in numbers. So let's say 3, 5, 7, and go and join that conversation, go and join that group which is an odd number. What really happens is, sometimes being in an odd number, you making it an even number, means that you'll be able to have a one-to-one with someone in that group. So that gives you some confidence. So that will always be my starting point from a networking perspective. And once you've found who are you talking to and what is it that they're discussing, please be very engaged and remain smiling. As I have always said, the key to and making sure that you are impactful to people is, if you come in a room with a frown, will that be impactful? Or if you come in a room with a smile, will that be impactful? Obviously, the smiling person will make a bigger impact. So keep smiling. Always remember that there's one person in that room or in that particular group who have the same issues as you, maybe that you don't know the topic or you don't know the people or you're new there. So always remember that and give that yourself that confidence that you're not the only one who's struggling or who wants to get to know other people. In terms of building a confidence, what is the best way of building confidence? For me, if you ask me personally, if I want to be confident in a network environment or in any environment where I don't know people, I always make sure I practice my elevated speech, my 30 seconds of how do I want to make an introduction to people, because that introduction will last with them for a very long time. So that introduction, I repeat with myself quite honestly. And then when I'm ready, that gives me the confidence when I'm networking exactly, and what is it that I want to say to people. And be clear about the networking event. What is the purpose of networking? Why are you there? You need to be very clear. You need to know the conversations you want to have with them. So the purpose should be, that I'm here to learn something new in the topic, or is it I want to get to know some more people within my network? Whatever it is there, just work that in your mind. So hold that thought. Remember one thing about networking, that you need to be kind to yourself, and you also need to be very kind to the person you're networking with, purely because if a person you want to network with and create a long-lasting relationship, you need to make sure that you are an attentive listener. A lot of us fail, especially because, we have things going through our mind. We have thoughts crossing us all the time. We understand, my presence here is enough, but attentive listening is one thing which we all need to work on. And I do that on a daily basis as well. So attentive listening is being present, being responsive, understanding what the person is saying to you. So that is one of the key things you need to be able to demonstrate, that you are actually interested in the topic they're saying. And sometimes the easiest thing is let the other person speak. So ask open-ended questions when you're trying to create a network. So ask them questions which you generally would like to get to know them better. So don't try to take over the conversation a lot by speaking more rather than listen more. That is another way of showing importance to the person and then creating that network as well. I guess the one thing I would always say to all of you is to remain genuine and honest to yourself and your values. You need to engage in those topics which are valuable for you, which are honest to you, which holds true to your heart. And that will also help you understand and find the right people in the room who would like to have that conversation. Again, another thing that really I think gets people talking to you is if you can end up or you start a conversation with a compliment. Complimenting each other is an important part of us, making them aware that we have noticed them, we have understood them in a more genuine way than anything else. So I think to a sum of perspective, networking, and these tips are the practical ones I will give you. And once you've done your networking, you've gone through the event, you've done what you had to do, the one thing I would say is to post networking actions that you need to consider. From that angle, the three things that I would say is always follow up your conversation with somebody. If you've taken their contact details, always follow it up with a personalized email or a personalized text if they have been able to, if they provide you with a number. And that personalized thing is very important. Why am I saying make it personal? Because remember, if you've met them and you've talked to them about something which was genuinely of your interest about the cricket, make that your hi, we met at the network, hope you're still watching the series, whatever has happened in that cricket, make it personalized. So it is not just a random text or a random email, which they get from a lot of people, but it is a genuine connection point. The second thing about is following up on your conversation. Don't be scared if they haven't responded to you, because a lot of people are busy and sometimes they don't take the chance to respond immediately, but give them the option. So you can always go back to them and then ask them further questions and get on with it. But don't be disappointed if things have not moved at the pace that you wanted to move. The other thing I would always say about it, as you build up your confidence on presentation, there's also a lot you could do about your communication skills. So writing an email is not about giving them a long history of things to work through. Keep it short, keep it accessible, and keep it relevant. So meaning keep your email or a follow-up as a short, sweet message, which is focused on the person you've met on. So please stay positive on these things, because we sometimes end up taking the time of a person, which by no means you mean it, because you may not have realized it, on topics which are not relevant. So that may not be of interest to them. So keep it safe into an environment where you're focused on them. It is simple for them to read, and it is understandable because they can remind themselves, oh, I've met this person at an event where we talked about this, and she or he has followed it up with a further a follow-up email. I think these are the tips I would give from a networking perspective. But now, networking is an important part of all of us in this professional world. So please don't take it lightly. Try to encourage yourself in doing the right thing by writing the follow-up email. Working on yourself is very important. Staying positive, keep smiling, and then having your elevated pitch. Second thing that I would really like to talk about is the client and team relationships. Obviously, all of this is absolute important in the world, in the professional world. So you need to be sure that you know how to do the right thing when it comes to client networking and also building that relationship with the team. For me, I really didn't have to think much about this topic, purely because it's a very personal thing for myself. The best thing that your teams and your clients like about a person is being the authentic you are. So for myself, I've never had to actually alter my style of my style on myself to make myself more acceptable. So I'm a Muslim, I'm an Asian, I'm a woman. All of these facts and myself, I'm very comfortable in my skin in terms of what I am and who I am. And that kind of oozes the confidence and the authenticity, which they like to actually work with and understand more. So for example, if I would give you an example about my authenticity, one of a very large client I worked with previously and even now, We talked about my background being Pakistani. I took on that client from another partner. We talked about it, and we ended up having this lovely conversation about myself being from Pakistan. And the chairman was quite impressed by my whole degree of, my qualification, my journey from where I've come to where I've landed. And he eventually said, I know Pakistan. And we ended up talking about how do you know Pakistan? And we found out that, he had links in Quetta, where his great-grandfather was actually deployed before pre-partition. So we had a good conversation around that, which made us connect on a very personal level, because I knew that he knew my roots. All right, he knew it from a different perspective, but he didn't know about it. So I had a genuine connection with him. Similarly, if I have one of my clients who is very interested in cricket, because I'm a cricket fan with a brother and nephews who are all cricket for, we debate and discuss cricket. We watch cricket together in the live stadium as well. And he and I have a very nice connection on the topic of cricket. So there's that commonality of sharing what everybody likes. Similarly, I would say that we also have shared a common journey together, where I had found out more about a personally about a client purely because of discussion about his personal circumstances, my personal circumstances, things that I've seen, and that became a very common ground to have a discussion. So one of my clients actually approached me and asked me, what is the best way to create that diversity, and what am I doing in my Muslim network in KPMG? And when I had that discussion with him, it was quite interesting that what are the things that they could do differently at the client side. And then that was a very, a great way of connecting another level of relationship with my client. In terms of team relationship, what do you generally think is going to be important from your perspective to connect with your teams? Obviously, making sure that you hear them, making sure that you're not just treating them as part of a delivery model, but you're treating them as part of a clear, plan structure, which you want to get further with. So with myself, what I tend to do is I usually have a one-to-one with my teams in this COVID environment, where I have various teams working remotely. I have a different way of communicating with them. So every Friday, while they do the work with me and on a different level, we have a private session where we connect on a different topic. So we have a session where we do, chair stretches together for 5 minutes. With one team, we have a gratitude session. With the other one, we talk about the positives and the negative, what we have learned, and what is it that we want to do differently. But remember in all of this that everyone is different. So every team will be different. The persons within the team will be different. So you have to be quite aware of the differences that are being brought forward to the table. So not everything works for everyone else, but usually common grounds can be established. So make sure you understand your teams, you understand your clients, and creating a common ground is not going to be impossible. Trust me, even the fact that you're different will actually mean there is more commonalities than you really think about it. And then acknowledging your differences is also a great way of communicating and connecting with your teams. So remember, a few things will really help the teams and respect you more. Remember their needs, compliment them, ask them of something which is personal to them about their children, how, in this circumstance, homeschooling, anybody's been ill. All those questions are good one to ask them. And similarly, I would say keep a regular touch point with your teams and your clients. For your client work, make sure you give them relevant input whenever needed. Have a regular touch point, discuss common issues, discuss what you're seeing in the industry, and there will be something or the other which keeps the connection going. So I think from my point of view, these are the key things that you can work through, and then you can work on them on a very different basis. But just from my point of view, one of the best things in doing all of these connectivity, relationship building, networking is to be honest with yourself. Be the best at what you want to achieve. Be the best version of yourself. If you can be the best version of yourself, which is positive, confident, and a smiling person, you will actually start generating and asking the same energy to come back to you. So that's one thing I would say. And remember, the teams that you have a connection with, these are long-lasting relationships because these team members may leave you and work somewhere else, so they may be your clients in the future. So remember that having that personal connection with your teams is absolutely important, not just for now, but even for your future. And one last thing I would like to say is, the first time you meet people, that is 70% of the first time impression will always remain imprinted on the people's mind. So your first impression is very much commonly said is your last impression. Use it to your benefit. As I would say, I've moved from Pakistan to Dubai, Dubai to Scotland, Dublin, London, and I've worked in various offices across the globe, right? The one thing that is common with everywhere is that you always have to connect with people's heart if you want to have a real long-term relationship with them. So regardless of where you're working, this is the one common you will always have with yourself. You will remain connected to people if you have touched their hearts, right? So make sure whatever you do, this is the one thing you grab and hold on to. Remember that there is the honest, the authenticity, the opportunity to leaving an impact on them is only achieved when you've touched their hearts in some way. So the smile will always be a positive, the elevated pitch will be a positive, following on a conversation will be a positive. So make sure you all do that. From my perspective, all of this is not uncommon to a lot of us. We all know it. We just need to make sure we practice this more and more, and make sure that we can do this as we go along in our journey. And you only refine as you progress in your professional journey to make sure this is achievable in a better and a more refined way. My biggest journey in learning these characteristics has been a book that I have learned a lot from, which is called Enjoy Your Life. It's based on the characteristics of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he has actually, most of these things that we learn in the books has actually shown by example: smiling, being kind to people, being responsive, understanding, letting them speak their heart. These were the things that I've seen in that book are so commonly used, which makes me actually think, these are the best practices that I can instill in achieving what I want to achieve, both professionally and also personally. With that note, I'm going to end this conversation for now and come back to you in the Q&A session and hand over back to Rumaana.
Thank you so much, Bano. That is such a wonderful, beautiful way to end it. What struck me was the way that you so beautifully said the way to connect with people is through people's hearts. And that it's such a lovely thing to hear, especially in a very corporate context. And it's so true what I've learned also in my experience as well. The way that you do that is by being personal, and you raise some very important points which I'm sure all of us can appreciate, particularly when you go to network. One should be kind to oneself and also kind to the other person, because it is about attentive listening. You make a personal impact through being kind and being personal in what you're saying and asking them personal questions. And your anecdote about cricket is so very true. People will remember you, and following up on conversations by being specific, it's such a great learning point for all of us. And thank you again very much for that lovely, lovely reminder. And I'm sure we'll come back to you in the Q&A.
Thank you.
Our next very exciting speaker is Rukasana Bhaijee, who will be sharing her very valuable insights on building and belonging in our teams and selves at work. Rukasana is a diversity, equity and inclusion lead for all of Google's Middle East, Europe and Asia technology business. And prior to that, she worked at Ernst & Young as a specialist D&I management consultant. I should also flag to you that she also worked at Queen Mary, focusing on gender diversity in academia, and was highly commended as the inspirational role model of the year at the European Diversity Awards. So that's obviously a very, very versatile and impressive portfolio of skills and background, mashallah, Rukasana. And I hand over to you to also glean some words of wisdom from you.
Thank you, Rumaana. Jazakallah khair for the introduction. Assalamu alaikum to everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I'm going to start you off just with some reflection. So think of your experiences at work or in your personal life where you felt fully valued, understood and seen for all you bring to the table, all of your background, experiences and skills. What was it about that situation, the environment, or the people around you that created that experience? How did this impact your sense of competence, confidence and success? And if you want to, feel free to put your thoughts into the chat box on your positive experiences. Now think of a time when you didn't feel valued, understood, or seen for who you are or what you can contribute. How was that experience? And again, feel free to put your thoughts into the chat box if you want to. Now, when I think of experiences like that, when I think of experiences of the second nature, when I didn't feel valued, when I didn't feel welcome, so even though I was present, I was a voice in the room, but my voice wasn't valued or my voice wasn't heard, that didn't make me feel good. It wasn't positive. It wasn't an environment where I felt like I belonged. And increasingly, more and more organizations, more and more universities like Stanford and Berkeley are doing research into the value of belonging. So organizations are looking at what does it take for individuals to belong. And actually, if they belong, if they are there, and if organizations are valuing the power of diversity and want creativity and innovation, once they're there, do we actually value those voices? So organizations are realizing that once people belong, it will improve productivity, it will improve psychological safety, well-being. So there's a plethora of research on this topic happening. What I wanted to spend some time focusing on today is not the organizational piece, it's about you. What will it take for you as individuals to belong somewhere? What should you be thinking about in terms of your own skill sets and values? And I love Bano's talk in terms of her authentic leadership and her style and all of her personal values that have led her to interact with others in the way that she does. So going into the next slide, I'll take you through just a few more questions. So this is a reflective session. I want you all to be thinking about yourselves as I'm talking. So the critical point here is, do you know yourself? And my younger nephew, who's now a lawyer at Pinson's, when he first came to Queen Mary University, funnily enough, to study, he left his parents who were in Dubai, and he came here to study by himself. And he said, well, Auntie Rukasana, I need to be clear who I am when I'm coming here to live by myself. What are my values? What drives me? So as a student, I mean, he was such a, he was like a 40-year-old with like an 18-year-old body, but he was so clear about kind of knowing himself. And I was so impressed because I was still figuring that out at that time. But knowing yourself and what drives you, what matters to you personally, what are your values and your non-negotiables? So by that, what do I mean? Really taking time to do some mapping to understand what your personal values are. What are your main motivators in life? It might be the akhirah, it might be thinking about the future. So every action you take in this life, how is it helping you to get to a better life in the akhirah? And compounded within that, you may have other factors. So is it family? And we'll all be at different stages in life. So family might matter to you. That might be your first priority. As I started having children, actually, being a mum was my first primary, factor. And I stopped working essentially for 10 years because I was, that was my core value in terms of I want to be a mum. So really think about what matters to you and what are your values and non-negotiables. And when you're going into an organization or when you're already in an organization and you're clear about who you are and what you're bringing to the table, you'll be able to be more effective and create your own space of belonging. So I also love to hear about Rumaana going into an organization and founding the Muslim Network, because that's almost creating your own space of building belonging. It was the same when I was working at EY with Robbina, who'll speak shortly. It was the Muslim Network and affinity group spaces that helped me to build my sense of belonging. And the same now at Google. I've never met my fellow Muslim Googlers, having joined in COVID, but I feel a sense of belonging in the events, in the emails we share. So that's helping me to create my sense of belonging, but also knowing in terms of my personal values and drivers, my family comes first. My non-negotiables are that I need to be, if I was not in a COVID environment, my non-negotiables would be, as soon as I get to a new team, I'm not coming to the pub with you. If that's like a normal thing that you do, that's not something I do. So all of my kind of non-negotiables, I like to lay out on the table. And that just helps me to build my own sense of belonging, because it was things like that I struggled with when I was younger. It was things like, ooh, what do I do? Do I belong in this space? Do I belong in this space? How can I have an impact? So critical to always know yourself. We can move into the next slide. The second point I want to talk about is code switching. This is, again, another academic term, which you may have come across, actually. It's a term that we've been using a lot in the diversity and inclusion space, and a number of organizations are starting to recognize that individuals from different racial backgrounds will have to code switch. So you may have to alter the way you speak, your accent. As an 18-year-old joining the Bank of England many years ago, I had a very East London accent, and that accent was almost drilled out of me. I'm sure they sent me on some kind of etiquette training. So now my accent is very received pronunciation. It's standard English, but it was almost like I had to code switch from who I was to assimilate into an environment that wasn't just very white. It was very white, Oxbridge, middle to upper class. So it was me each day code switching, having to switch off certain parts of my life, heritage, dress, ways of being, ways of operating. And many individuals from different racial backgrounds speak about code switching and having to make that subtle shift in the way you are. And it's something that takes energy and mental effort. And it's something that kind of then distracts from your productivity in the workplace. So really think about, what would it take for you to belong? Are you able to speak to the people that you're working with to share openly? Like Ramadan is coming, so I'm going to be in my team for the first time this year. So I'm already thinking, right, I need to kind of almost lay down my values in terms of Ramadan. How am I productive? When am I not productive? So that come Ramadan, I don't need to code switch and pretend I'm in normal mode. I can actually work to the best of my ability in Ramadan mode, but making Ramadan my priority. So take time to think about what it takes for you to build belonging within your teams. Because when you do, that's when you'll thrive in the workplace as well. It can be a competitive advantage for you. It can be a competitive advantage for your organization. And it's one where actually it's just helpful, because it's not taking the mental load and the energy for you to be constantly switching code. Moving into the next one. I recently attended a talk and I loved this quote. I've done lots of panels where I've talked about imposter syndrome and things to tackle imposter syndrome, and how that takes away from belonging, a feeling of belonging in an organization. And quite often, if you're from a different racial background, or if you're a woman, and sometimes when people talk about Muslim women wearing a hijab, they may talk about the triple penalty of being a woman, being potentially from a different racial background, and also being of visible faith. So you may feel like you're walking into situations with not just racial anxiety, but faith anxiety. You may be questioning, do I need to prove myself a little bit more in terms of the perceived credibility? If I'm a white middle-class man, I walk in and people assume I know what I'm talking about. People assume I have the power and the influence. I know that as a woman, Muslim woman wearing a hijab, I do have to work that little bit harder to overcome that stereotype threat. I do have to work that little bit harder to build my credibility, but that's fine, because once I do it, it's also similar to something Bano said in terms of, once I do it, people will never forget that woman, the Asian woman in the scarf. So if I'm at an event, if I'm speaking somewhere, if I'm in a big Google meeting now with mostly white men, they're going to remember what the woman in the headscarf said, because there's not many of me. So leveraging being the only. So if you are an only in a room, leverage being the only, use it to your advantage. And a talk I attended recently by John Amici, it was an I Am Remarkable talk. I think it's on the Google website if anyone wants to, on YouTube, Talks at Google. John Amici talked about imposter syndrome, and I loved it because it didn't focus on women or a minority group and about fixing those women or fixing the minorities. he talked about the culture. So if you are feeling like you don't belong, or if ever you are feeling a case of imposter syndrome that doesn't make sense, because all of us are credible. If we're in a role, if we've been hired somewhere, it's because we're credible. We have the, not just the qualifications, but the skill, the demonstrable capabilities to be leading in our respective areas of work. So if we're feeling that sense of imposter syndrome, it's not you. It really isn't. There must be something around you in the culture. So even in our virtual environments, what are the interactions that are happening? Who's getting the attention? I've been speaking a lot about visibility bias and availability bias in COVID times to help leaders understand that this will be a challenge right now. So even if you're feeling any sense of imposter syndrome in this COVID climate, think about what the culture around you is and what could be different. What could be different? So ask yourself that question, because it won't be about you. So don't let it impact your own sense of belonging. Don't let it impact your confidence. Just really question what could be different, and is there anything I can do to make a difference, to change that? And that takes me on to the next point on the next slide. Think about using your agency for positive change. And this is where I think about Stormzy at Glastonbury last year. I think it was last year. He used his platform. So Stormzy, he's, if anyone doesn't know him, he's he's a singer, Glastonbury's big music festival, and he used that platform for positive change. So as a Black man, he used that big platform. He knew it was a wide audience. That event was going to be streamed to I don't know how many people, but he used that time to lift and empower others, other Black individuals. So he used that time and his own agency for positive change. So when you're thinking about your sense of belonging, how can and things you could potentially change, think about, okay, well, if this is my platform, I have a role here, I can use my voice. And if you're able to, because you may not be in a place where you can, and that's perfectly fine as well. So if you're in a place where you're able to, think about how you can use your agency. Who can you influence? What are those small conversations that you can have that will not only impact your sense of belonging, but the people around you as well, the wider Muslim community in an organization, and that might be through having one simple conversation. You may end up changing the hearts and minds of others. So think about how you leverage your agency. We all have power. We all have influence. It's about how we use it. It's getting small. So there's no such thing as a single issue struggle, because we do not live single issue lives. And this refers to the fact that your experience as a Muslim person in an organization, or as any individual in an organization, it won't be the same as another Muslim person's, or it won't be the same as another man's or woman's, because we're all multi-layered individuals with very different lives, challenges. Even if we picture an iceberg here, people can only see what they see, but there's so much more going on probably for each of us. We're all going through this particular time with our own individual struggles, whether it's homeschooling, whether it's caring for elders. So remember that all your experience is your experience. So whenever you think about building belonging for yourself or supporting others, try and always center yourself in, this is my experience. How can I build that credibility for myself whilst lifting others, but recognizing that is your own experience? And I'll probably end with referring back to Bano's kind of excellent point on authentic leadership. A quote that I heard recently as well was kind of, be you, just be you, be confident being you, because everyone else is taken. Thanks, Rumaana.
Thank you, Rukasana. There's some wonderful personal reflections there, and something all of us can empathise with. What particularly struck out to me, I have to say, is leveraging the power of being the only one. And I can definitely relate, not just working in the city as a transactional lawyer, but also working in the Foreign Office. I was very often the only Muslim, only brown, only hijabi person. And referencing Stormzy is so great, because you know, even if you can impact change in a minutest of way with your co-worker who doesn't necessarily have to be the boss, it's a good thing, and it shows understanding. And I didn't actually realize the amount of research being done in this area, and it's so interesting to hear about code switching. I think it's only very briefly kind of coming into the mainstream, so it's really interesting to hear from you in your diversity role how important it is. And imposter syndrome, like, absolutely loved hearing about it. It's so true. It's not about us, it's about the culture that surrounds us. So I thank you again for your wonderful thoughts, and I'm sure there'll be lots and lots of questions for you at the Q&A, which we're all looking forward to. I'm going to move on now to our final speaker, our final star of the evening. Her name is Robbina Qureshi. She's a senior manager at KPMG, working within the aerospace and defense sector. Her career spans, mashallah, over 10 years working in data and analytics and across various organizations, including EY, which seems to be popular tonight, and Capgemini. Most importantly, she's involved, and this is honestly from myself the most impressive thing about you, working in a number of various women in tech initiatives, including KPMG's It's Her Future program, which focuses on recruiting women from BAME minority backgrounds, and also the Wonder Woman Tech global platform. Robbina also co-chaired the EY Muslim Network organization and was also an active mentor for the Prince Charles's Trust Mosaic program, and also Brunel University. I should also add, very importantly, that she speaks 6 languages, which I have to say I'm incredibly impressed at, mashallah. So welcome, Robbina, and please take it away on your communication and presentational skills tips.
Thank you. I'd like to add that I'd attempt to speak 6 languages. I'm not good at it. I'm jack of all trades, but thank you so much. And assalamu alaikum, everyone. Really happy to be here. And we will start with some data, because that's what I do. I do data and analytics. So starting with some numbers. 7% of communication is verbal, so the way I'm talking to you. 38% is the tone and inflection. And a staggering 55% is body language. Now, I could be just sitting like that. That's a bad body language. And if I'm crossing my arms, that means I'm not very happy. So body language is 55%. My eye contact is part of that. The way I am either moving too much or not actually just looking all over the place. It's all part of the communication. One example of the tone is a long time ago, my mother actually gave me the feedback that when I'm either excited or nervous, I talk really fast and I don't know what I'm talking about and no one understands, which is really true. When I am nervous, when I am excited, my tone seems to just get higher and I talk really fast. So according to my mother, there's nothing coherent coming out, it's just noise. And imagine I'm having a conversation with a client, with a team member, with a friend, and it's just noise coming out. So tone and body language make up part of our communication pattern. The next fact or data is that more than 60% of employers say that applicants are not demonstrating sufficient communication, presentation, and interpersonal skills to be considered for a job. That's a big number, 60% of employers. And it also puts an emphasis on how important these skills are as well. If I'm not able to talk to my team members, to my leadership team, to my clients, I'm not really going to get the job done. And if I'm not able to present the ideas or the solutions that I'm working on, again, it will still not get the work done. So it's a massive 60% of employers saying that we're looking for these kind of communications. Number 3 is 57% of recruiters say that interpersonal skills will grow in demand over the next 5 years. And I can see that. One of the reasoning, if I look at, I'm a data and analytics, and I used to be a coder. I started my career as a developer, as a coder. Most of the development work is now going offshore. So my job, if I didn't move on from as a developer, was actually taken. What has helped me to be where I am is my communication skills, is my presentation skills, are the interpersonal skills, to be able to not just focus on the development of the code, but also actually translate the business problem into technical language That's what the job is. That's what I do right now. And I do still code every now and then, but there is no way that I could have continued if I hadn't developed the other skills as well. And 70% say that presentation skills are critical for career success, which is absolutely key. I'm presenting here today in front of you, but I'm also presenting pretty much every single day at work as well, whether be it's the client has a problem and how are we going to solve that. That needs to be done in a language, in a format that is understandable and at the level that my audience is at as well. Because just because I'm technical, I have to be aware of who my audience is. Most of my clients are not technical people. And the last factor before I move on, and I'll share my slides as well, is that the fear of presentation and public speaking inhibits promotions to management by 15%, and they also cut salary by 10%. Imagine that, the fear of presenting and public speaking. And do you know why that is? It's visibility. If you're presenting, you're visible and you're in sight. The saying that out of sight is out of mind is so very true in a corporate world and in a working environment. If you are doing a fantastic job, but no one knows who you are, where you sit, what kind of a person you are, they're not really going to have that connection. Bano talked about the connection and Rukasana talked about the connection. Human connection is really, really important. And that's part of presenting myself to you, for example, today. And when we go for an interview, when we go for a client meeting. I'll now try and share my screen. Hopefully it will work. Let's have a look. Can you see my screen? Yeah, okay. So let me see if I can give it off some of the, okay. So what is the importance of presentation and communication skills, and what can we do with that? Communication and presentation skills help us to advance our professional image and career. As I talked about, it is important to be visible and present ideas and sell, and also showcase your skills and experience. The last point is very important when we're going for an interview, for example. Interview is a time when it is all about you. It is all about you, and that's the time to shine. That's the time to talk about your skills, and they will be done through how you present to yourself physically, as well as how you communicate to the interviewer as well. I'll give you an example. It's a long time ago when I was going for Atos. I was doing a assessment. Most of the organizations do. They have a business case. They give you a case, and then you have to work on it, and then you have to present at the end. While they left me in a room, just before leaving me in the room, the interviewer came back and he gave me a donut to eat. And he sat there and he goes, "Eat." And I said, "I'm sorry, I'm not going to eat. Are you having yours?" And he goes, "No." And I said, "I just want you to have it." I said, "Thank you, I'll eat it when you're here." And he goes, "Why?" I said, "Because it's rude to just eat on my own. If you join me, then that'll be good, but it would be rude for me to just eat on my own." And he really liked that. He goes, "That is so sweet, and that's very polite as well." I said, "Yeah, that's almost my culture. So being me, it is our culture, isn't it? Like if I don't eat, if you don't eat, then I don't eat either." But he remembered that, and he liked that. The next one is with strong communication skills, you can better connect with your friends, family, colleagues, your team members, your clients, and all sorts of other people as well. And it's important. We don't take communication it's really strange. We think the communication that we have at work is completely separate to the way we have it at home as well. But if you here, when marriages, for example, break down, one of the most common reason is that there was no communication. There was a communication breakdown, and that's a key factor in everyone's life at home or at work as well. Better communication help us to probably maintain marriages. I'm not quite sure yet, but that seems to be one of the reasons they're breaking down. But be empathetic with our friends and colleagues and families. Communication and presentation skills are a mechanism to transfer information, and that can be done verbally. I can sit here and give you, like Bano did in a presentation, and she didn't use any aids. That's one way of doing it. Rukasana used visual aids, and so I am as well. And it's important when we are having a conversation or a communication and presenting it to the client, to our team members, that it's effective, whether it be verbal or visual. It's effective communication, because we're transferring information. You're taking away something from me. You're taking away the message that I'm trying to convey. The other factor that I actually really like is that when we are presenting, and it's all time bound. We've been giving 15 minutes, for example, for this presentation. I need to make sure that I cover all the information that I want to share. So sharing my ideas, sharing the message that I have, but also I engage with you as an audience, as well as that you take away the message and understand me. So whether it be team members or clients, it's extremely important that we communicate clearly and appropriately with the variety, and we're able to do that with a wide variety of people. My next point on communication presentation is that it boosts confidence. Now, if you do it for the first time, it's very nerve-wracking to publicly speak or to present in front of 50 people or even 5 people. It's completely different where you're in a group and you're talking informal environment, but as soon as you stand to present, the dynamics completely change. And it is at that point that we have to be really aware of a few things that I will cover in the next slide. But once you've done it, you feel really good, because it's a confidence booster that you're able to stand in front of 5 people, 10 people, 500 people, and everyone, all the focus was on you and the message that you were trying to convey. And you help. So presentations, if you're using aids like I am, it's an engagement point of view as well. You're engaging with the audience, you're connecting with people, and there could be a color that you like, or there could be something written on the screen that you actually like. And the last one, which is actually really, really close to me, because I really believe that, is the great communicators are the ones who bring solutions, drive change, motivate and inspire their colleagues. Personally, if someone comes to me and they say there is a problem, okay, but then if they come with the problem and a solution, brilliant. That's the kind of person that I want to go to all the time, because I know that they'll have a problem, but they'll definitely have a solution, or at least look into that as well. And that's the kind of team members, for example, you want. And that's what clients are looking for as well. Clients come to us because we are able to solve their problems. So the next slide is all about the cues and for presentation skills and communication skills that we can incorporate every day and be aware of. Communication is not a one-way system, it's a two-way. And actually it's listening and observing others is the key, 2 key factors and elements of communication. If I just stand here right now I am presenting, but if in a conversation I'm having with you and I only talk about myself, do not listen to you, you will feel ignored, you will feel bad, and you will leave with a bad taste in your mouth. So the key kind of how to improve communication skill is that we observe what's happening around us, what's happening to the people that we are talking to, listen to them really. Everyone likes when we pay attention to them, and look out for verbal cues in them, as well as the verbal cues that I may be giving, for example, today as well. So some of the verbal cues are that eye contact, if I'm talking to you, if there is an eye contact, or I'm looking somewhere else, or I'm fidgety because I'm nervous. And lots of people do that. They start to move around quite a lot. The other non-verbal cue is when we feel nervous, or we think that I don't have the next kind of cue coming up. I hope you noticed that. We start to add ums and ahs. So I was just doing that. So we start to fill the gap with ums and ahs because we're thinking, and it's perfectly normal to be quiet for a few seconds. Actually, it's a lot more impactful. Body language, again, crossing your arms, fidgeting, or kind of constantly touching your hair or something like that. Being aware of that, speaking very clearly and concisely, paying attention to tone. Again, if I know that I tend to speak very fast when I get excited, so I always consciously make a mental note to think of how tone is. Last one is the presentation, and both of them overlap each other, because in a presentation you still want to make sure that you know who your audience is. You want to make sure that you have a subject matter, you've prepared your work, you've done your homework, so you come prepared. If I hadn't done all of that, I may have been struggling, for example, today to speak about it. And the point of presentation, if you are using visual aids or not, if you're presenting an idea, the point is that you are better than competitors, whatever it is and whoever they are, it does not matter. The point is that you are better than your competitors. So time management, again, 15 minutes or 20 minutes or half an hour, making sure that you cover all the points in the timeline that you have been given. And the last one is avoid distractions. So right now I'm sitting and looking at the screen, but behind that laptop is a window, a massive window. Right now it's very dark, so I can't see, but during the day, I know that when the cars go past or when the lorries go past, sometimes I do get distracted. But when I'm presenting to client, I'm making sure that my eyes are glued to the camera and I'm not distracted by that. And it's the same thing, I mean, presenting in a room as well. These are some simple tips and simple cues that I personally use as well as they can be really, really helpful when helping to build communication and presentation skills. And I think I may have just come to 15 minutes with that. So I'm back to you, Rumaana.
Thank you, Robbina. You've definitely demonstrated the art of being a perfect orator with being succinct and demonstrating all those effective communication skills that you taught us just now, including body language. I have to say, it was really fascinating to hear some of the things you said, in particular the facts and the stats about how recruiters pick up on this sort of thing. And it's so great to hear. I mean, I found that your talk sort of, personally for me, reflected back what the other two speakers were talking about in terms of making a personal impact and having empathy with those around you and sort of observing the person you're speaking to and making sure that you build that connection. So thank you again. You make communication so effortless, I have to say. And on that note, I'm going to pass over to my co-hosts, Tasnima and Miah. And she is going to collate some of the questions which have been populating furiously in the Zoom chat. Sadly, we don't have all our speakers today here for very long, so we'll have to collect sort of a broad theme of high-level top questions to pose to all the speakers. But perhaps, inshallah, in the future, we could have a dedicated night of one night with Bano, one night with Rukasana, one night with Robbina. I'm sure everyone here will appreciate that. I know I will too. So over to Tasnima.
Hi everyone, Assalamu alaikum. I'm Tasnima and I'm part of the Consortium Network Committee here. So just to give you some short background information, I'm a graduate technology analyst at Credit Suisse, so soon to be almost 2 years in this role, so I'm basically a baby here. But yeah, so I'm now working with data sourcing and development, and in my first year I was an application developer. So what an amazing set of speakers who've had the privilege of hearing, your advice and your tips and really how to make an impact in our roles. I, for one, definitely took a lot from it, especially, for example, the impact of a smile and how to network effectively from Bano, the valuing your non-negotiables and how you can really influence yourself and the others around you from Rukasana, and the power of strong communication skills, and not just in our work life, but in all aspects of our lives from Robbina. So there's been plenty of questions for our speakers. And just to let you guys know, we would like to keep the responses short, so almost like quick fire answers. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Okay, so first question is for Bano. Please, can you let us know what is the name of the book that you mentioned that affected you in such a positive manner?
Yeah, so I think the book is a very simple name. It's called The Art of Interaction with People, and it's called Enjoy Your Life. So I actually went out to just collect it and see. So this is the book I've been reading. Very simple. Even a child can read this. I've shared it with all my 9 nieces and nephews. Must read.
Great, thank you. So this is the question now to all of you.
Yeah.
So depending on your experiences of imposter syndrome or internalized racism or sexism in the workplace, what practical steps did you take, or the culture around you take, to ensure your feeling of belong? So let's start with Robbina.
I don't believe in imposter syndrome. And I think that it's a toxic word, and I really don't believe it. I do believe is that when I start something new, obviously I don't know what it is, so I'm nervous and I'm at a learning stage, and I go in and I learn, and I don't know everything, so it's a learning time and a learning period for me. I don't believe in imposter syndrome at all, because I'm not imposing to be anything but me, and I'm learning what it is that's come my way. In terms of dealing with biases, I suppose there's one example I gave when we had the session last time. I gave an example when a colleague of mine told my manager, who was on holiday for a week, that Rubina needs to comes at 5 and leaves at 5. So comes at 9, leaves at 5, and the other girl, she stays behind till 8 or 9 o'clock, and we need to make sure that we need to work Rubina like a dog. My manager was really happy with me. He had a good chat with me, and he goes, I have no idea what happened in a week that I was away, but that's what I got from this director. And I explained to him that the other girl, she comes in really early, yes, and she comes in really late, but she's checking her Facebook, she's on Instagram, she's reading all the newspapers. I'm not going to waste my time. I do the work, and then I got home. And do you have any issues with me? And he goes, no, I've never had any problem with you. What I did do afterwards, which was quite shocking to the director, I set up a one-to-one with him, and I had a coffee and catch up. I wasn't attacking him, but I just wanted to understand where his view or this perception came that I don't do the work, and I come on 9 and leave at 5, and the other people are doing all the work. It was really shocking when I actually sat down with him and I popped that question very politely, just wanted to catch up with you on that. He was not expecting me to do that. So if you feel that someone is being biased towards you and someone has a wrong perception of you, I call it out, and I would encourage others to call it out as well. Because when I explained to him and that all my work is done on time, and I come on time and I leave on time. If I need to stay behind, I always do, but I will not stay behind just for being visible. It's like bums on seats. There's a term that people use, is bums on seats, and it's a very financial term as well. It was working at Lloyd's banking group, so it's a very financial term. And he actually was okay afterwards, but call it out. I would say call out.
Thanks for being for that. Rukasana, what would you suggest for that answer?
I would say every situation is different, and every person's experience is different. And everyone's experience is valid. So if someone is experiencing imposter syndrome, then that is something that's happening for them, and no one can take that away. And it's actually overachievers that end up going through something like that. But if it comes to, was the question internalized racism? So it's personal kind of thoughts in your own head. So if you're kind of working through internalized racism or sexism, then it's something that really you need to do some work on yourself in understanding your own identity, your cultural values, personal drivers, what matters to you most. If it's external, so if you're experiencing racism or racist behaviors or microaggressions or moments of, did someone just say that? What did they really mean? What was actually going on? And there are many moments like that. Anybody who's different or other, or even othered in any kind of way, will experience microaggressions. Again, really think about, if you're able to call it out, call it out. If you're in a position where you can and you're safe and you have that psychological safety, because ultimately you're in that environment, you can judge if you're confident enough, if you have that personal trust or relationship with the people around you to be able to do that. If you're not able to call it out, think about who your tribe is. Who are the people around you that you can test it with? Think about what your safety net is, and that might be your family. It might be an ERG or a network in your organization, but definitely do whatever's best for you as an individual, as opposed to what you think you should do.
Thank you. And Bano, what would be your advice?
I would echo what Rukasana has said about the topic. So given like, for me, actually, personally, you know, most of these things where people talked about imposter syndrome and everything, it's very real for a lot of people, and it's not real for those who have that confidence in themselves. So I cannot even simply dismiss it, right? And certain of these languages, when people talk to me about, you know, breaking the glass ceiling and everything, I used to say to people, look, I didn't know these jargons when I was moving through my career. Okay, I only knew one thing, that I want to make a positive impact and do the right thing and achieve my goals. So there were things like that where I would say it is real for the imposter syndrome, these kind of things, breaking this glass ceiling. And this is very real for other people. And it may be real for you as well, but you have not acknowledged it from a terminology point of view. And again, it's about the bad culture. It's not about you, right? So be aware of the culture that you're working in, right? And in all of this, I go back to one thing, which is very important. Be kind to yourself. It's okay to feel something like this. Be kind to yourself and acknowledge it and talk about it with, as you said, the tribe, and then see what you need to do about it.
Great, thank you. So moving on to our next question. So this is for Robbina and Bano. What are your thoughts or advice on demonstrating emotional intelligence in interview situations? So let's start with Robbina.
I'll give an example. I was having, some time ago, I was going through an interview and they asked me a question, and sometimes because you are nervous, my mind just completely went blank, and I completely forgot that what was the question, what was the answer. And I do that every day. It's and I actually just kept wrecking, and but while I'm wrecking my brain, I can feel my body heating up because I'm getting more and more nervous. And at some point I said, can I get back to you? Be honest. And I just say to him as well, to the interview, that my mind's gone completely blank. Can I get back to you? And he goes, yes, sure. So moved on to the next question. I calmed down. I think authenticity is really key. Being honest is key in interviews. If I was to start saying something completely wrong, he is an intelligent person. That's why he's interviewing me. I would have been caught, and that would have been worse because I know. But putting the hand up that I don't know the question, but I will learn about it, or I will look into it. Or can I get back to you if your mind's gone blank? Mine does sometimes, it's normal. What I did do at the interview, we did the interview, we moved on. Right at the end, when there was opportunity, when they said, do you have any questions for me? I asked him a question, so I got him a bit busy. And at that point, I took just a few seconds to go through what was the answer. And when he stopped answering his answer, I actually said to him, you know, the question that you asked earlier on, and I said, my mind's gone blank, that is the answer. And he said, that's really impressive. So sometimes you are able to answer because you know everything, but when you are nervous, say it. When you can't think of an answer, say it. If you don't know the answer, especially, there's a bit of a bluff. We all do that, but within a limit, because they know outside of that. And if you're caught out, it's the worst. As Bano said, the first impression is the last impression. An interview definitely is the first and the last impression.
Great, thanks. Bano, anything else to add to that?
Yeah, so emotional intelligence is a two-way thing. So you need to be emotionally intelligent, and the audience or the person who's receiving you as well is quite emotionally intelligent. So from my perspective, I don't think so there's anything wrong in being your complete self in an interview. So, and even before that, if there are circumstances which prevents you from attending an interview or something like that, if you're honest about it, that's kind of well taken. So I'll give you a personal example. When I was going through my partner panels at KPMG, I had a situation towards my last panel, which was on Monday, and on a Sunday, my mother passed away. My father said to me from Pakistan, don't come for the janaza, and you can, you finish this and come back. And I said, no, that's my last tribute to my mom. I'm going to do it. My brothers, my sisters, everybody said it. I picked up the phone to the, to the head of FS. I explained him my circumstances, and he said, obviously go, come back. When I came back, I had the panel, and I was still very tired, and I started on a very high pitch and everything. During the meeting, I did say to them, I'm still very emotional about the whole circumstances. And as you're aware, my mother passed away, and I know she would be the happiest person today if I go through these panels and I'm successful. Sometimes all these emotional connection actually gets you more of a result than you really think. So don't undervalue the intelligence that your emotions are bringing through. Very recently, there was this, a lot of debate has been going about Serena Williams in her cricket, in her tennis. Why cricket is again coming back to me, in her, post semi-finals that the interview she gave, and she ended up in tears and said no more. The emotionally intelligent people, take it on. It's okay. Be yourself. Be honest. Doesn't really take away the fact of what you're going to achieve. And inshallah, any of you, whatever you're going to achieve, doesn't mean you need to be actually more emotionally intelligent than anything else.
Thank you. So our next question is for all of you guys. What drivers or motivations would you recommend to someone to overcome a quarter-life work crisis? So let's start with Rukasana.
I love this question. I'm in my third career. So what I'm doing right now, the world of HR and talent, is my third career. So I guess I've had a couple of points in life where I've stopped and paused and taken a kind of reset. So, and my kind of a guidance and advice would be, do whatever's best for you at any given stage of your life. So when I'd done 10 years in banking, nothing HR related, I was in currency settlements. I paused when I had my children, and I did an alternate career. So I reskilled, did an alternate career in complementary therapy for the next 10 years. And then when the time was right for me, I reskilled again. So I studied again, stopped, and went into the world of HR. And that's now been kind of the next 10 years. But at that point, when my second son had started school, I did take time to explore, and I explored everything. Is it university? Is it, dietetics or physiotherapy? I explored a wide range of areas that I might want to go into. And another thing that I'll say is do istikhara. If you're someone who's of the Muslim faith, doing istikhara at those critical points in your life, when you may feel like it's a crisis, or just when you need that guidance. That's something that I definitely do at decision-making moments, to stop, reflect. I might do my own research and understanding and think about what will fit in my life, my values, but then I'll ask for guidance and direction as well.
Thank you. Moving on, let's ask Bano, what would you say for that?
The same question, sorry? It's the same question.
Yes,
about...
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so what motivates you to overcome a quarter-life work crisis?
I guess what motivates me to overcome anything is just, I've done a lot of things differently. So Pakistan, Dubai, moving countries, doing different firms. I worked in audit. I worked in a chairman's office on a secondment basis. I did audit technology transformation work, and then I've now settled in KPMG. So for me, I think it's all about, I'm a very keen. I like to learn. I like to explore. I like to do different things, and that's my key motto. I enjoy taking the risk of doing something different, right? And I always tell a lot of my team members and everything, I said, do what you feel like you want to do, because at the end of the journey, if you fail, there's a story to tell. And if you are successful, there's a bigger story to tell. But everything is a learning journey, and all of it will only bring you benefit. So again, as I would say, there's nothing that stops you from taking a career break, trying something different, going to a uni, moving countries, as long as this is whatever it feels necessary to achieve your goals, your personal objectives.
Thank you. And Robbina?
I learned something from a mentee of mine. So I said that I'm a mentor at Brunel University, and I pretty much, as soon as I graduated, I went into mentoring. And the person who actually got me into mentoring, when he asked me, do you want to join? You should be a mentor. And I said, I don't think I have anything to give, because it's a year after university. And he said, you definitely have 1 year of experience that you can give back to the undergrads. So I started to mentor one of my mentees 2 years down the road. He was I think he was in his 40s when he was assigned to me, and I was nervous. I was really nervous. How there is nothing that I can tell this guy who is 40 years old, who's lived an entire life, who has a family. I've done none of those things. And again, at that point, I said, I've got to go and see what happens. And he motivated me. And I asked him, why are you doing a degree at this time, this time of your life? And he goes, I got married really early, had a child, had to get into work because I needed to feed my family. And now that I've done all of that, I am now ready to take on the things that I want to do, and I want to complete my degree at university, and that's why I'm here. And he motivated me, so I learned something from my mentee. So for me, there is no time limit, there is no time period to stop yourself from doing something. One of the reasons is that I don't, and change is always good. One reason Rumaana mentioned earlier on that I speak 6 languages, it's not because I'm a linguist or because I'm really keen to learn. It was just because of the life circumstances that growing up, I moved so much, continents and countries that I had to learn. But and I was fed up with all the changes as a young child going through that. But as an adult, I really appreciate, because every time something changed, I learned something that now I apply. To me, change is always good. And as Bano said, I like things different. I absolutely like things that are different.
Thanks, Robbina. So this question is for Rukasana and Bano. If someone took a break in their career to be a mum, for example, would that affect their chances of progressing, such as becoming a partner? So yeah, let's start with Rukasana.
I don't think so. I think life can be what you make it, and depending on kind of what you're praying for and what your version of success is. So if your version of success is, I want to be a partner, then I think you can absolutely do that. When I was at EY, I contemplated, right, I'm kind of senior manager at EY, I can make director this year. Do I stay here and make partner, or do I go to Google? And that's also really cool and exciting, and it will build my street cred with my kids and nieces and nephews. So I think anything is possible. I never thought 10 years ago I'd be at Google today. I thought I'd be too old or not cool enough. I'm not a techie, all of those things. I think you can't put kind of a time limit. Do whatever's going to make you happy, and success is different for everyone. Success, might be making partner. Who knows? One day I might end up back in the Big Four as a partner. There's still time, so don't rule anything out.
Thank you. And Bano?
Yeah, so I think more than any time now, like before, it may be something that people thought it was impossible to do. As the time has progressing and the agenda is very much focused around diversity, inclusion, and also bringing people from different backgrounds together, I don't think so being a mother or taking a career break or doing something different and coming and doing something different would actually impair becoming a partner or will impact you. It's your own personal drive. It's your own personal demons which sometimes stop you from taking the leap of faith and asking the next question to your boss: could I be made a partner? What could I do to achieve the goal I want to achieve for myself, right? So a lot of people have usually said to me that I'm not a mother, I'm not married, and probably your career has progressed well because you don't have all those responsibilities. And I laugh about it. And I say, not really, these are that doesn't take away the fact that, you know, a lot of women would find it difficult being a mother, being everything. It's the balance they want to create, right? I have sisters who are working, and I have my sister-in-law who's working. It's the balance you need to create. And success is about your, you know, own definition. It's not about anything else, right? Does being a partner means everything to them? So be it. Just being a great mother is also full-time job. I think my mother was the best partner I would have ever seen. She had all those qualities that any partner could not possibly have. So I think, look, it's about your personal drive. Yeah, it's about your personal drive. So remember one thing: the success is not defined by the job title. It's defined by how happy you are, right? And how happy you are bringing people through to what they want to achieve. Today, my challenge or my dream is that I can empower more and more women through the network, more and more people through the network. Let them say it's going to be okay. We'll all in it together, and we'll all make it, you know, easy for each other, which is the one thing we all should work towards. Okay. So don't take it, you know, if you're thinking about a career break, if you're a mother, if you think that's going to impair you in any way towards your success, no, that's not going to happen. It's your internal demons. Fight them and say, you know, calm your mind down, make it self-command your mental, you know, demons or sabotage, as they say, in achieving your goals.
Thank you. Beautiful answer. We actually have a question for Rumaana, so we'll end it with that one. How did you know for sure that corporate law was the career for you, and would you say that it's a fulfilling career?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think that's rather dependent on my very Asian parents. But essentially, I wanted to do law because I did a history degree and it was very commonplace to do a conversion course. I wanted to do corporate law because I wanted to enter the magic circle and have my career defined there. I aimed for the best. I worked for the best. I've spent the last 10 years all the magic circle firms. I think, and I will link back the answer to whether something's fulfilling to what Bano's just said, because I think it's such a fantastic note to end on. I think whether something's fulfilling and whether you're a success is dependent very much on your own personal barometer. It's not something that's defined by society's expectations of what success is. Success for one person can very much be a partner if that makes you fulfilled and it's happy, or for another person it can be a balance of family and being a partner or anything else. I think it's not a question that I can answer because I think it's dependent on the person, but I would definitely encourage anyone wanting to go into corporate law to do so, and especially the magic circle firms, because, you know, similar to the Big Four, it's an unrivaled experience which you'll never get anywhere else, and it's a wonderful platform to kind of move on to other things in life. And I personally, you know, went from there, from being 10 years there to going in-house to the FCO, and it was only a blessing for me to do so. I hope that's answered the question as best as possible. I'm super conscious of time, so I would just like to end it by saying I've so very much enjoyed this evening, particularly this end session with the three speakers. It's so fruitful, and I think the thing that stands out for me has been the continuous line of, you know, being kind to oneself and being kind to others and being personal in our impact and in our communication, and being proud of being different and sort of, you know, treating everybody with respect. I know that's a very basic thing to say, but often I think it's lost in the noise of this world and sort of other things. But kindness and being, you know, true to oneself is really what sort of gets us through, not just in a professional setting, but in a personal setting. So on that note, I'd like to thank all of the three speakers. Thank you so much for your time on such a very busy weekday. You know, and I would definitely love the opportunity, if it ever arose, to have, you know, a one-on-one session with each of you, and I'm sure all of our audience would benefit from it too. So maybe I can leave that with you as a very unsubtle, gentle request to all of you. I'd also like to thank all of the individuals involved today at Cube Consortium and Wolf Sisters, including but not limited to the very fabulous Miah, who's been a wonderful stage director, and like I said to him earlier, I can see him on Broadway post-COVID. I would just like to remind you of our forthcoming events super quickly. So the next Empowering Me, Empowering You event, don't forget the exclamation mark, is on the 11th of March, and it's to commemorate International Women's Day. And it will be hosted by an array of wonderful individuals who you can see on your screen. And I would also I just want to say here on a very personal note, it's great to see those speakers on the Women's Day thing too, but just regarding Robbina, Bano, Rukasana, as someone who's a little bit older than most of you in the audience, it makes me super proud to see such a wonderful array of Muslim Asian professional working women who have risen so far in their careers. I think our community has this, it's testament to how far our community has progressed and the strength within us. And, you know, and I'm so sure like that the three of you have inspired everyone else here today to follow in your footsteps. Very finally, CUBE are arranging a series of pre-Ramadan and Ramadan related talks with consultant neurologists, sheikhs, nutritionists, and even more. So please watch this space, and those following on social media, which I believe is something that the kids do. All the details will be posted there. So on this note, I'll say thank you so much again to all the speakers and all our audience, and good night. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Rumaana.
Thank you.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you. Goodbye.